Hey, Tom Moretti here. We're going to talk a little bit about swing plane today. This is something that everyone is really interested in, is am I swinging the club on plane? A lot of the top teachers, a lot of teachers in general really, are very focused on trying to get all their students to swing the club on plane, which is really the easiest way to return the club to the ball at impact. If you've got the club on plane going back in the swing and then back down to impact, it really can help with your consistency. But let's talk about some of the people who maybe have a non-traditional approach to this. One of the students that I've seen is Miyazato from the LPGA Tour, and another golfer that everybody really likes to watch, who's a little unconventional in the way he does things, is Bubba Watson. All right, both of these players have unique backswings. We could probably throw Jim Furyk in there. I think everybody can relate to seeing Jim Furyk swing. All right, but these players do some unconventional things in the backswing, but they are able to return the club back on plane at impact, square the club face, and get the ball going to their target. Now, how is this accomplished? If we look at a setup of a golfer going down the line here, all right, what we generally see is, where we get the golfer going down the target line, and if we look at like a Bubba Watson, and I'm going to do it lefty because Bubba's a lefty, all right? So if we get Bubba coming in here, he sets up very tall to the ball, and then the club goes way out away from him on the takeaway, all right? Not terribly unusual, but he does get it a little to the outside. Jim Furyk does the same thing, kind of lifts the club off the plane line slightly. Now, Miyazato does the exact opposite. This isn't anything I would teach, but she does it. On her takeaway, and she's a little bit of a thing, on her takeaway with a driver, Miyazato gets the club over here. Now this is a very heavy position, especially with a driver. So she has the club in a very, very heavy position. But she gets it to the top and is somehow able to get the club back on plane, delivered to the ball at impact square, and get the club going towards the target. Now, one of the things that I notice with a lot of top players, we get a lot of very good swings on the PGA Tour and LPGA Tour that return the club back down the plane line almost perfectly and strike the golf ball. But guess what? Those are not the players who are winning every week. Just because their swing is maybe more textbook, they do not win every week on the PGA or LPGA Tour. There are other players that do unconventional things with the golf club that are equally successful. The important thing is that you need to understand you do not hit the golf ball with your backswing. So there are certain zones in the backswing where really it's okay to be. You don't necessarily have to be perfectly up the plane line on the backswing. But the one thing that I do notice, especially with the driver, is that a lot of tour pros come a little from the inside to strike the golf ball at impact. The one thing that no good player does, not one, is on the downswing to get outside the plane line that runs from the ball through the shoulder, or what's referred to as the Hogan plane. Okay, so there are two planes that I look at in the swing. One is the shaft plane from the address position, and the second would be the Hogan plane from the ball through the shoulder, through the top of the shoulder. There is no good player that gets on top of that Hogan plane line. If we see the club get outside that line, which we see a lot of amateurs do by casting or getting the club throwing out over the top of the backswing, over the top of the ball, that is a terrible, terrible move in golf. If we can get students to understand that we need to come under that plane line to strike a golf ball, they would have a lot more success with their ball striking. All right, but I want you to understand that each tour pro is slightly different. We're going to show you some examples of that, but they do not get outside that Hogan plane line. I cannot emphasize that enough. Each player I've ever seen on video that's a quality player has the club under that plane line, some more than others. Tiger and Rory McIlroy tend to get it a little inside that line. They're having pretty good careers, don't you think? All right, so we need to really establish what it is we're looking for when we talk about plane.